Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Techpeeps Diaspora. Today, I have on the show another software engineer, and I'm really excited about this one because there's so much I think we can learn from this gentleman's story. Let me just hand it over to him, and he will quickly introduce himself. Hi, Ibrahim. Welcome to the show.
Hi Zach, thanks for having me on the show. It's a great pleasure to be here. My name is Ibrahim Abdullah. I'm from Ghana, and I currently work for Microsoft as a software engineer. I've been working for Microsoft for close to 3 years now, so it's been an exciting journey. Yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That's like really cool. Like it's, I think working this your story is going to be one of the the dreamy stories for a lot of people. And myself, I'm really excited to learn more about your story. Can you tell us like a little bit more about your work? Like what do you do at Microsoft? What does a software engineer do at Microsoft basically?
We have all sorts of software engineers. Me specifically, I work on office engineering side. So basically, we build engineering systems that are used by office product teams to do whatever engineering they have to do to build Excel, Word, PowerPoint, and all of that. Um, I specifically work on a test framework, a test runtime, and harnesses that are used to. They are basically used by the developers to write their unit integration, component test, and all of that. We have the runtime, which is a tooling that they use to run their test. And we also sort of like provide tooling such that they can stand up their test and run it in an automation lab. They can also kind of run their test as part of the build system. Yeah, so that's basically building like developer tooling and all of that. That's what I do, and it's been an exciting thing. As part of the work, so day to day, it's either you are trying to develop a feature where you have to do the design, get your team members to review. Then when they sign off, you start the implementation process. There's another part of the job where you also have to kind of monitor the systems you own to make sure that if something is going on wrong, anyone can get up quickly and kind of resolve those issues. So we have this on-call rotation where when you are on call, it means it is your turn to kind of monitor the systems we have, respond to customer questions and all of that. Fortunately for me, my customers are still as software engineers within Microsoft. So so they send questions like, okay, I'm trying to do this, it's not working, or maybe you've deployed a feature and it's kind of causing problems, so you have to figure out like what to do. Do you have to kind of fix that issue while it's in production, or you have to roll back and kind of fix the issue before you redeploy again and all of that? So that's another part of the engineering work. So it's quite exciting. It's not always about writing code as people think software engineering is. A lot of things goes into designing the feature or the projects that you are working on, how it fits into the whole engineering systems, the system that you are trying to contribute to. Get your team to review, sometimes partner team to review and kind of sign off. Sometimes you have to take into consideration the resources you are going to use in terms of like, okay, if you are going to use, for example, like Azure, for example, how much Azure resources, how much is it going to cost, and all of that. What are the benefits of the feature? Is it a feature where it's more like it's going to reduce the pain of developers, or it's something new that has to be increased, but there's another downside to it where it's like, okay, it's going to increase their build time by 2 seconds, 3 seconds, but then we think it's worth it, considering the trade-offs and all of that. So all those decisions play in when you're developing a software for a big company like Microsoft and all of that. And it's not easy developing things for other developers as well, because every other developer has an opinion. Okay, I don't think you have to do this anymore. Oh, I want it done this way. But then sometimes you just have to do the trade-offs and see, like, for the whole people that you're developing the software for, how many of them are interested in the thing. And sometimes to provide the avenues where whoever does not want it can turn that particular feature off, and who wants it can have it on and all of that. So it's quite an interesting thing. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like really, really interesting. And also it sounds like that involves a lot of like responsibility and taking, like taking responsibility for your work and a lot of collaboration and stuff. What would you say it's, your favorite part of the job and maybe your favorite part of being a software engineer like at a company like Microsoft?
I think for most people, we will all say it's the coding part, right? The coding part, it's really exciting. I mean, when you get to think about how to sort of design. I mean, you do the design as a document sort of thing, then you have to translate everything into code. That for me is very exciting. So I always want to be in a position where I'm writing more code that I'm excited about. And it's like the feeling of knowing how things work. Like this is a situation. I find myself in a situation where you are building things that other developers are using. So it's kind of exciting when you know, like, okay, I have to go one level below to get this thing to work so that other people can build on top of it. So that's also really cool. So the coding is it's really exciting. There's a huge chunk of it where you have to talk to other people, other partner teams, and all of that. That comes with a little of not really technical skills, but like more of social skills, how to communicate, write emails, and sort of things. Get people to agree with you on what you want to push forward, because sometimes they don't want to agree, and you have to kind of explain to them in several ways so that, okay, they will think this is a good feature. They also have to kind of release resources for you to be able to get the work done. Sometimes our work is highly dependent on other teams as well. So if you are going to work on a particular feature, you have to make sure that some other team will be able to have another engineer that will be able to build something for you before you can build yours. So yeah, that's also really cool in terms of trying to get people to do work that you want them to do. Yeah.
Like really interesting. Um, I know that for, a lot of software engineers, like one thing that they also highlight a lot is the fact that it offers them like a lot of flexibility, to not just about work, but to also to explore like other things and side projects and all. Like is it the same for you? Do you work remotely or you go to the office? Like how does that check out for you?
It's a mix of the two. So first of all, I am based in Vancouver, but most of the people I work with are based in the US. So even if I'm working from the office in Vancouver, I'm still like working remotely with with my other team members, right? Then even in Vancouver, it's not every time that I go to the office. Since throughout the whole pandemic, I worked from home. Then we went back to the office, but then even the whole of last week, I didn't go to the office. So there is that flexibility. Sometimes there is some family constraints, so you can't go to the office. You have the flexibility to work from home and sort of like respond to family issues and all of that. So all of those things count in. So yeah, it's you can choose. I think you can. For us, for example, my team is very remote friendly, so they will ask you like, okay, are you going to come to the office every day, or you're going to do 50%, 50%, or maybe you're just going to work from home all the time. But I usually go to the office most of the time, but when I know like maybe there are reasons why I can't go, like for example, the whole of this week or last week, the heat was very too high, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to work from home, and I was also having cold, so there's that flexibility there. In terms of side projects and all of that, that's a little bit tricky. I haven't really been developing side project sort of things. I've done a couple of things outside work. I think sometime last year around this time, I was engaged in a mentoring program for, I think, She Code Africa, where we mentored some of the students for a couple of times and all of that. Aside that, most of the time it's my work, because the work itself is it's it's not easy. So when I come back from work, sometimes I just want to like unplug and just spend time with family, relax and all sort of things. So yeah.
That's so cool. The fact that I imagine working at a place like Microsoft is going to be very demanding. I've seen or at least I've spoken to people where they say like this is a place where just working 9 5 sometimes it's not gonna cut it. You need to put in extra work. You need to perform at a really high level. So being able to have that balance, like it's really impressive. Yeah, so this the point where I'm really interested. I want to dive more into your background. Like how did all of this start for you?
Um, well, where should I start from? Okay. So I went to high school at Infantipim High School. I went to Infantipim, where I studied science with geography instead of biology, because I didn't want to be a doctor and I wanted to swerve my father. he, he was like, okay, a doctor will be fine. I'm like, I don't want to be it. If that's the case, I'm not going to do biology. So that cancels me out. So I was particularly interested in engineering. My main goal was to go and do petroleum engineering. Either at Kane USD or UMAT. Because at the time, as a young boy, I had this impression like, okay, Ghana has found oil, so maybe there will be job in the petroleum engineering sector and all of that. But things didn't go really as planned. So after high school, I had to stay at home for 1 year, trying to kind of gather money to go to school and all of that. So I stayed at home for 1 year working. And it was during that period that I found Ashesi. I'm like, okay, this is cool. They have scholarship. Then I don't have to pay school fees. So it will be exciting to go to there. Then I'm looking at what courses Ashesi offer, and it was computer science, business administration, and management information systems. So I'm like, okay, computer science. I did science in SHS, so let's go to computer science. So I went to Ashesi for that. I got into Ashesi as a computer science student. Studied for like the 4 years. During that period of time, I'm like just trying to discover myself, trying to see what I can do in the computer science field. I wasn't really into actually developing software. I know some of my classmates at the time were learning to build mobile apps, web apps, and I wasn't really interested in those kind of things. So you see me doing most of the computer science stuff. I go into the data structures class. I'm like, I'm really excited about what we are talking about and all of that. But building actual software, I wasn't really into it. And I was a little bit confused as well. There is this thing in software where it's like, today you start learning this particular thing and you see another person learning something as well. Like, okay, what am I not doing? Maybe I should go and learn that particular thing as well. And it just keep going back and forth. I remember when I started, we hadn't done web tech in school yet, and I started learning like HTML, CSS thing and all of that. Then you see another person learning JavaScript or doing something with JavaScript, even though you could do that JavaScript on top of the HTML, CSS. Like you want to jump and go and do JavaScript. Then you see somebody doing something with Java, like you want to go and do Java. Then sometimes you go and sit in class, there's machine learning going on. You're like, okay, let me probably go into machine learning. Oh, data science, let me go into data science sort of thing. So I was kind of going those kind of back and forth thing when I was in school. So I wasn't sure. Then final year, when I was about to graduate, throughout graduation, I'm like, okay, I think what I really want to work on is like working on developer platform. Like I was thinking of like maybe building Windows operating system, for example. That would be exciting thing for me to work on, working on build systems. I hadn't really thought about developer tools, but I think that was also like underlying principle of building some of these build system tools and all of that. So I was like, okay, I think I'll be interested in this thing because those things, even though it's software engineering, it's highly incorporate computer science concept and all of that. So I was kind of interested in those kind of things. Um, so yeah, I completed Ashesi and I'm like, okay, I was going to do my national service at Ashesi and use that 1 year to kind of prepare for some of the interviews that I was going to be interested in. For example, applying for Microsoft, or back then in Ashesi it was more of Goldman Sachs and all of those kind of banking companies. So Microsoft came along the way. I did the interview and I got into it. So I was like, okay, this is quite exciting. So let's move it from there. I did a couple of internships while I was in Ashesi. I think in 2016 I did an internship with you at Slick Job, which is now Co-Train. It was very challenging. That was like my early years into the whole thing of working for a company and all of that. I remember doing a little bit of PHP. I did a little bit of what is it called? My SQL and all of that, all those kind of things. I mean, I couldn't really build anything exciting, but at least it was an introduction to the whole software thing. Then the next year, I think I did an internship at Slick Job, not Slick Job, sorry, Genki. Genki, they do biometric software systems. So I wasn't really working on their main software, but they gave us an individual project where they were like, okay, build this inventory system, doing the UI design, doing the back end and everything. And I was able to do quite a good job with that. So they were kind of interested in like, okay, maybe after school I'll be able to pursue other opportunities with them. But I think the next year, that was like in my final year, that summer, I traveled to the US where I worked. I did sort of this summer internship with College of Worcester. So they have this program where they get some of their students to work with other companies. So either banking, they are building a system for them, or analyzing their data, sort of thing. So I got that opportunity where I went there, worked with a startup basically that are trying to use software to identify people's talent, like kids. They kind of monitor what they do, what they are interested in, and kind of gauge their talents and be like, okay, we think you are talented in this, so maybe you should pursue this career, sort of thing. So I worked with them, a couple of front end design and sort of that stuff. I'm doing a lot of there is this platform, I've forgotten its name. So I did a lot of things on a particular platform, which was very exciting. I did that for like 8 weeks. Then I came back to Ghana to start my national service and all of that. So that has been sort of the story for it's not really like, I'm not like the type who was like, okay, you are building apps, you are building those kind of things like really really known, and companies will come and be like okay, let's hire this person. It was more like really discovering myself, knowing what I was interested in. I picked it from there. Then fortunately for me, like Microsoft came in along the way, and it just fit. I was just a good fit at that point in time. So
So that's really interesting. Seems like you really make good use of like your times in school. Your times in school and like all the little experiences. Those internships, even if they were just a few weeks, you made really good use of them. And like you were saying that when Microsoft came along, it was just a good fit. It sounds that simple, but I know that the like behind the scenes, a lot of work would have gone into that. What was like the process transitioning to Microsoft? Like, what was that for you? I know usually for people to even get interviews at like companies like Microsoft, you need to have like a huge track record, many years of experience and stuff. What was that process for you? What do you think made it very easy for you to, maybe it wasn't easy, but made it like easier for you to get these opportunities at companies like Microsoft?
so first of all, I think The internships I did help, and I also sort of engaged in hackathons when I was in school. For example, I think is it I tried Google Summer of Code, they didn't pick me. There's hash code, for example. Yes, Google hash code. Yeah, I think I participated in Google hash code a couple of times, twice. Sometimes you are not even able to get a point. Then the following year you get a little bit of points, and it was all sort of interesting problems. I think the last Google hash code that I participated in, it was really about it was more something more about YouTube, where they are thinking about, they have different servers in different locations. They are thinking about where to put videos so that it will be less costly for them to kind of produce, or so for viewers to basically view view those videos and all of that. That was like very exciting project, like interesting engineering problem to solve for me. And so even though, I mean, during the hackathon I didn't kind of come up, me and my team didn't kind of come up with a solution to it. It was like it opened my eyes to like some of the things that I have to do or I have to learn if I want to get into companies like this, right? And I also do remember, I think in 2017, Microsoft held a hackathon. It was part of their Redmond, Africa to Redmond program, where they hire engineering talent from Africa and bring them to their Redmond office to work for them. So that hackathon as well, myself and a couple of friends did engage in that hackathon. And I actually became first in Ghana. They did it country by country. We came first in Ghana, and we didn't hear from them again. So it was kind of very heartbreaking. We don't know why we did not hear from them again. But later on, we did hear, like, throughout the same program, they had hired some engineers to come to their Redmond office. So they were doing this Africa to Redmond program, where in 2017 they had their first batch of engineering students, engineering and out of college students from Africa to come to their Redmond office. So when we didn't hear from them, it was kind of heartbreak. But at that time, we were in third year as well, so we were going into our final year. So we kind of sort of had the impression like, okay, they might be coming again the next year, right? So let's sort of prepare a little bit to wait for them. If they come, then they just hit it loud like that. So that was it. And I was kind of very intentional about my national service as well. So basically, my main goal for my national service was to do my national service at Ashesi. I had other reasons, other important reasons, but one of the important reasons was like to do my national service at Ashesi, where I'll have access to free internet to do to learn and to prepare for the next step after college, after my national service. So for those who did their national service with me back then at Ashesi, they realize that I will come to school and I will stay there a very long time, deep in the night, like around 12 midnight. And people will usually wonder, what do you do in school that you come to school and stay that long time as well? But I was using that time to learn, cracking the coding interview, preparing for these tech interviews and all of that. So sometimes I'll come and I'll rather go home around 5 a.m. I was living down the hill to Berkeley, so I'll go home at 5 a.m., go and sleep a little bit, come back and take my classes and all of that. So it was kind of like you sort of, it's like Microsoft came in at the right time, but I was kind of preparing myself for an opportunity like that as well. It wasn't really easy at that time. And also preparing for interviews. So my partner, my wife now, was also very helpful at that particular time, because she was very helpful in terms of helping me prepare for interviews. So if I need to do prep interview, she was the one going to interview me as if like she's like top tech executive sort of thing. No, like she was very, very helpful as well. She helped me prepare. And I also had a friend that I used to do when it comes to like technical coding interviews. I had a friend that sometimes around 12 midnight we are doing calls trying to learn some of or answer some of these lead code interview questions and all of that, and we were all preparing for that. So yeah, it was just like a long process of trying to build that sort of thing, that sort of like knowledge base to be able to prepare for the interview. Even the courses that I was a teaching assistant for at Ashesi, I was very intentional about choosing those courses. I was teaching assistant for software engineering, teaching assistant for data structures and algorithms, teaching assistant for system design and analysis. Then I think programming 3 as well, which was so it was more like something that would keep me on my toes to prepare for the opportunities that I was looking for. So it was really good.
Yeah, and then with all this preparation, finally you got into Microsoft. What was like your first few days or your first few weeks? Like I know for most people, even for myself, like whenever I start a new job, there's this imposter syndrome. Hey, like after my first few days, they're gonna find out I'm a fraud because maybe there was even like my before I got my previous role, I was so like nervous. I had already gotten the role and I was like, hey, what if they open their code base and I can't even find my way around it? Like, did you have a similar experience and how did you deal with that?
Um, before I made a transition into Vancouver, I was very calm about it. I wasn't really nervous about what the future has for me and all of that. But when I started work, I was very overwhelmed. So first of all, it does seem like I didn't know anything about what they do, from programming languages to the kind of things they do. My team, most of the things are built in C sharp, Perl. You kind of see W scripts in there. You see all sorts of programming languages in there, C++ and all of that. And when I say C++, you can think about like the old C++ and the new C++. So I was like, wait, what am I doing here? There was one time, I joined with another lady, and there was already another person who was working from Vancouver office, so who had been here for like close to 3 years. So I called him, like, I need to talk to you, and I'm like, wait, why did you people hire me here? It's like it's like, wait, well, I started to question whether I was diversity high or not, because I'm like, all the things that you guys are doing, it seems like I know nothing about it. It's like the only thing that I know is I went to school, I studied computer science. I know what programming is, the programming principles and all of that, but what people are doing, I don't really know what's going on here. And I was like, yeah, I mean, just take the cool down, take it step by step and all of that. So it was very overwhelming in the beginning. I mean, and to find yourself in that situation where you are new wherever you are, you're getting used to the weather, you don't have any family member. Oh my goodness, it was quite a tough time. There was one time I remember I closed from work, and there was one guy who's also from Ashesi actually, but he came like a month before me. He was coming to visit me, and I didn't know how I slept. Like, he came to my building, he and I had already slept after I closed from work, and he couldn't come inside. That was like how I used to feel exhausted, because you are always thinking about like what can you do, especially when you see other people doing extremely well, and you are so confused and all of that. Yeah. But yeah, my team was very, very helpful. I had very great mentors. One of the things I think I am very good at is to anticipate certain things that I will need and ask for help. So when the first week, second week, I realized like, okay, this thing, I'm getting overwhelmed and all of that. I immediately talked to my manager. I'm like, you know what? I'm out of college. I don't know a lot about the things you people are doing. So what would be best for me is to get me a mentor who will help me to learn all these things, all the softwares we do, to try and understand the landscape and everything, and all of that. And he was able to get me my mentor, who is now my engineering manager. And he was very helpful, like for like the whole of the first year. We will meet every month to be like, okay, what does this thing do, what does that do, and all of that. He will be able to explain the engineering system from me. Then from there I was able to get my first project done. I was like, okay, it's going on well. If you're able to do your first project, I remember the first time I checked in, I completed a code review, PR. I'll go to the code source code base and I'll just look at my code. I'll just stare at it. I'm like, wow, I have a code in Microsoft code base and people are using it into production, right? So that was very exciting. So I got the mentor who really helped me to, like, I think sometime into my second year, I'm like, okay, I think I'm actually okay with this. If I need any help, I'm going to set up a meeting with you as well. So that was also very, very helpful. Yeah, it can be very overwhelming. You see people doing all sorts of things, and you be like, maybe I came to the wrong place. But then, I mean, one of the qualities of good software engineers is to have the perseverance and the grace to kind of pull through some of these things as well. So, I mean, it can be very overwhelming, but you just have to take your time, take it one step at a time, and I'm sure you'll be. I mean, right now, if I look back, I'm like, why was I even too much worried, right? Because if I had just not worried and taken it one step at a time, it would have been like, I wouldn't have been straight out like how I used to be back then, but it's way better now. Yeah, so that was like the experience when I first joined the company. It's like, I mean, it's a big company as well. You go into demo meeting and you see what people are demoing, and I'm like, wow, just wow. And you start feeling like, well, will I be able to do something like that? Or sometimes when they give you the project, even figuring out what exactly you have to do, the problem you are trying to solve, and all of that, what dependencies and all of that. All on top of that, you have to make sure, like, you submit your code for review and you see the comments that comes and you're like, okay, is it like I'm not there yet sort of thing. But it's all part. As when you stay in the company for a while, you, like, everybody gets comments on their code review, even like principal software engineers and all of that. Sometimes something will just elude you, and somebody has to come and point it out in the code review. So yeah.
Sounds like everyone goes through like this kind of stuff. It's just something you have to go through like every time. It never goes away. Um, we have just a few minutes left. But
Just to add on to, like, what you said about something that everybody goes through. To be honest with you, I've been in a meeting where somebody who has been at Microsoft for over 30 years, he's a principal engineer, and he did mention that every time he is starting a new project, he goes through the imposter syndrome. For me, that was like a reality check for me. Adam was like, oh, okay, then this is not just like me thing. Everybody almost, somebody who has been working, like, he has gray hair now. He's been working in the industry for a very long time, over 30 years. Like, before I was born, he was working at Microsoft, right? And the person did mention, like, even at this point in time, he does experience that sort of thing. Then it's me like, it's just something that you have to know how to deal with. But everybody will experience this at a time. I think if you are, change is difficult. So if you are trying new things, always you will feel like maybe you are not a good fit for it. So, like, you get like your one step into it, two step into it, then you'll be like, okay, it will become familiar to you. So
one last thing I would ask is, assuming you had a chance to start all over again, are there any things that you would do differently?
I think I wouldn't worry so much about all the different things that are going on in tech. So for example, if I was to start all over again, if I pick Java as a programming language, I'm going to stick to Java, learn all the programming concepts, do everything I can possibly do with Java, make sure I understand software engineering, and from there you just be able to pick up any programming language. If you understand the programming concept, you understand software engineering, it doesn't really matter what programming language you're going to work with. Because one thing I've realized here, even at Microsoft, is like in our code base, we have so many programming languages. Sometimes you have to make a change in W script or whatever. It's not like a language that you've been programming in all your life, but then you go there and you're able to look at things, read the code, even though you don't know the details of it, you can understand what the program is trying to do and even make a fix in the code base. So it's really important. I know people get overwhelmed where they go back and forth. Like today they are learning JavaScript, they will stop, they will learn Python, they will stop, they will learn Java, they will stop C++ and all of that. You just have to stick to one particular programming language, learn the underlying programming concept, the data structures, the algorithms, and all of that. Do as much as you can with that particular programming language. And then when you get into that, your first tech job and all of that, you can easily switch to Python or switch to something else. Like it's very easy. For me, I had this 1 week gig in Ghana some time ago where it was just 1 week at and it was more like, well, my friend just called me up and was like, okay, I'm available, let's go and do it. I went in, they were doing something in Python. I wasn't really learning Python. I was like, okay, I didn't know Python, just give me 2 days, let me learn Python and I'll be able to build this more thing for them. I learned Python. I was just sitting in their office learning Python. Then by Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we're able to build some service hooks for their APIs and all of that, such that, I mean, when somebody applies for a job on their website, you just automatically pick the notification, send it to their Slack channel or send it to their email for them to be able to know. Like, so it was a very quick. It wasn't like I was an expert in Python, but I was able to quickly learn or transfer the knowledge that I had in Java at the time, learn Python because I know what for loops is. I know what if a statement is, right? I just have to know the syntax, then transfer the knowledge and build something as quickly as possible. It will happen all the time if you're a software engineer. So those who are like now coming into the space shouldn't be so much worried about like learning so many programming languages. Like just stick to one, learn the principles, then you can transfer that knowledge to almost every other programming language. That's what I wouldn't have done. Like learning almost everything, I wouldn't have done that if I'm starting all over again.
That makes like a lot of sense. And yeah, a lot of people, when they start, you just chase one technology after. Like even, just take JavaScript for instance. There's always a new framework, there's always a new library, and people keep jumping from one thing to the other without really like understanding well enough what the fundamental, concepts are. And these concepts are what is transferable between, languages and frameworks and libraries and stuff. Yeah, it's been very insightful talking to you today. I'm sure like our viewers have learned a lot. Myself, like I just learned something new. I didn't know you were married, by the way. I just learned about that today. Yeah, so I'm very grateful that you agreed to do this, and hopefully we can schedule another section and have some more interesting conversation. Thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me too. I had a good time. Thanks you, Zach.